Now that all technical difficulty is taken care of, we have started recording. I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. Henderson, to share with us what we're going to try to accomplish today.
Right. Thank you. So, good afternoon. It's Friday and we're going to have fun. That's most importantly. So first thing first, when we think about communication in classrooms, it's so many areas that I could hit on. But after consulting with my team, there are some things that are really, really important that we're facing. And AI, of course, is one of the most primitive things that we have to talk about because it is just there. So this is going to be very interactive. I'm probably going to go over 2 slides. That's it. And then we're going to get in breakout groups because we want to kind of create this discussion because each one of us, we kind of teach in a different department, College of Liberal Arts, but maybe other colleges here as well. So we want to kind of see how our experiences in the classroom and communications, they're really similar. You may not give speeches like I do, but you may give essays. And those essays may require you to give some feedback that students do not receive in a very, let's just say, productive way. So we're going to kind of talk about some ways that we can better communicate our feedback, how we can integrate AI, and then also how we can sort of see how speech, writing, and all these components of conflict can kind of surge together in our understanding of communication in the classroom, but we can use skills to help facilitate a better, let's just say, communicative environment. So we're going to go to the next slide. I already discussed what we're talking about: conflict management skills, perception and conflict. And those other ones are the ones that we're going to get into small groups and we're going to discuss and come back and talk. Next slide. So, a nice quote here. To effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different and that we perceive the world and use of this understanding as a guide to our communication with others. So, really, what this means to me is that I may be using communication to achieve a goal. Other people may be using communication and not understand what it is. But when we kind of emerge in conflict, let's think about in our classrooms, students are communicating because they need to keep their scholarship. They want to learn the content. You are communicating because you want to facilitate an effective learning environment. So we have sort of 2 goals and we're using communication differently, but we have to go into collaboration for us to understand how we can be effective. So we can go to the next slide. I told you it's not going to be long. So I know all of you, if you're teaching for 1 year or 2 years, you're going to experience some conflict. So conflict begins when people have incompatible goals or actions. Our goal is mainly sex. Right. um, the learning objectives that we have, they need to be measurable, they need to be defined. And if we say that we're doing this thing, we need to actually do it. So our part as a teacher and our pedagogy is really important of how we structure classes. Students, on the other hand, need this class to graduate. They need a certain GPA, they need a certain grade. And so there we have incompatible goals, right? And we can't forget our passion for teaching, right? And so those are just incompatible. It's just they're not working out. But we're going to find a way in between what the students are perceiving and what we are perceiving and how we can use some skills to better help it. So as I said earlier, collaboration is the best way. And so collaboration just means compromise, not compromising on your integrity of your learning objectives, but compromising on the social interaction between students. All right. So let's just think about everyone has a perception, right? So when we are communicating, what's not seen is probably more important what we can see. So we cannot see our internal noise, right? And so internal noise could be my biases that last every time a student say they forgot to turn something in is usually not true. Or the saying that my dog ate my homework, that's a red flag. So that's my perception as I go on as an instructor because I'm trying to prepare the students for what we like to say is the real world. And we know deadlines are deadlines. So things get cut off. if things are not paid at the right time. Okay. So we sort of take that realistic approach to assignments and having discipline in what we do. Students' perspective may be, well, you're here to guide me. And in some way, they like to be adults when it's convenient. And so that could be a nice perception sort of intertwining incompatible goals. But we're going to learn today how to take a student who feedback they did not receive in a good way. We're going to kind of take some skills to say, okay, here's what I perceive is going on. So I'm going to use a resource, tangible resources to help me facilitate this. We can go to the next slide. And the number one thing we're going to focus on is artificial intelligence. And so they have a definition, but really what we want to realize is that it is not artificial intelligence is not the mark of the beast. Hopefully it's not. It is not this bad thing that we see. It's sort of just this tool that we use that can do human reasoning, decision making, and it can create. Now, this is interesting because decision making and human reasoning is some of the things that we test a lot, analytical and critical thinking abilities. But we can use artificial intelligence for our benefit just as well as our students. So you can stop showing the PowerPoint because I talked enough. So we're going to get into groups and we're going to discuss some points here. So the first one is feedback. How many of you all just have some problems giving students feedback? Those are one of the groups, and you can put in the chat if you want feedback. Okay, so I'm gonna give you about 5 minutes to decide which group you want to get into. So we have 3 groups: providing feedback, writing trauma, and fear of public speaking. So in the chat, go ahead and tell me which group you want to be in, and we're gonna get into these groups, and you're gonna answer 2 questions here. So the first question is, discuss conflict that you have experienced with providing feedback, writing trauma, or students' fear of speaking. So that's the first thing. You're going to talk about the conflict that you have experienced. The second thing is you're going to discuss how can you use AI to help you maneuver through this conflict. After we come back and we get into our discussion, I'm gonna talk about the conflict management skills and the perception things that we can use, and then that's going to be the end of the session. So very engaging, very quick, very easy, right? First thing first, when we get into the groups, you're going to discuss the conflict that you experience with providing feedback, writing trauma, or students' public speaking. The second thing is that you're going to discuss some ways that we can use AI to help us maneuver these conflicts. Then we're going to get back and we're going to discuss it all together. So let's see. Feedback, Dr. Carter, feedback, writing. Okay. So I'm going to start to put people in breakout groups. Let's see, Dr. Carter. May take a little minute.
It's like everybody is concerned about feedback primarily. So maybe we'll have 2 feedback groups. How about that? We don't seem to have any public speaking folks. Okay. Dr. Broccoli says she can do feedback too. All right.
So we're going to do 2 rooms. Let's see.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dr. Phillips. There's so many things that we want to hone our skills on. Like feedback is good, but writing trauma, that's constant. For me too. I have writing trauma.
Okay. So it's random, so it's all together. So I'm just going to open the rooms and you all can decide if you're going to do feedback. We can have 2 groups of feedback, 1 group feedback, 1 back writing. So you all have the power to decide. So I'm going to open them now and then I'll drop in and out of them. So,
yeah. And Dr. Henderson, when you go in the rooms, would you just put in the chat for them what the questions were again, because yeah,
Yes.
I'm I have a bad memory. I've already forgotten those.
It's okay. I should have did it anyway. Let's see. Got two tasks. Okay.
There we go. They're all in there.
Okay. I sent it in the chat and I'm gonna go jump in.
Okay. Mm. Hi, Dr. Davis.
How are you?
Doing well. So, folks are in breakout rooms. They're talking about how they give students feedback and how they see it, not only what are the challenges or conflicts they have with feedback, but have they thought about ways to use AI to address that feedback? So I'm gonna put you in a room, see if I can, and just let me know if you have any questions when you guys get started. There we go. You see the invite for the room? Yeah. It's always a good sign when I have to drag people back from breakout rooms. Means you're having a good conversation.
Okay. I think it's gonna close soon.
Yes, 22 seconds. So they'll be back. I told them it's always a good sign when I have to force people to come back from breakout rooms. It means they're having some good.
Yes, it was really good. I had some ideas. I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that in that way. Yeah, it's really cool. Let's see, can't see if they're back. Oh, I can see this way.
All right.
Okay.
I think that's everybody.
All right, so I'm going to go with group one. Can you tell us a little bit of what you discussed in some of your conflicts in your classes about giving feedback, and what are your AI suggestions?
So we talked about just some of the things that we see with student feedback. And it was talked about of how sometimes when you give feedback, but students don't make the suggested changes or revisions as well. And so just trying to find ways to improve that communication with students. A resource that I learned about was PAC. I think it's called Packback. And that's something that I just learned about that can help students with their assignments and use like AI. So I'm very grateful that our group shared that resource, and I plan to look into it.
Perfect. One thing I would say for students, and we talked about this in your group, unfortunately, there's no theory or concept that we can use to motivate students to value feedback, right? Or to make the suggested changes that we offer. But one thing that we could do is kind of create conversations in the semester to input to them the value of feedback. That this class is kind of centered around you making mistakes and then me guiding you so you can make better choices. And so, kind of deleting this thought sometimes, I used to think it when I was an undergraduate, you write a paper one time and it's perfect. Right? Like, no, that's not it. You do an assignment for the first time and you go with your first idea, but kind of getting them to understand that what you are doing is you're learning. And I think in the second group, we talked about that a little, that students getting students accustomed to making mistakes, and that what our feedback will do is to guide them to do better overall. So looking at learning as more long term than just one assignment. And so checking their perceptions at the door about the value of feedback. That if I take time and give you feedback, I want to see this feedback in the next assignment. So you can use Canvas announcements to do it. Remind them. I know for me, sometimes my students are not aware that I actually went into the document and highlighted and gave them feedback. And so I tell them, go into the document on Canvas to see my feedback. And then also assign rough drafts or preliminary assignments to the big assignments so they can see, no, she doesn't really want me to get this right, or he doesn't really want me to get it right. This is an opportunity to show what I know and so that she can guide me. So that's one way. And then the latter is some students may have to take the class again, or some students may have to, they don't see the importance of learning now. So we'll have to be patient with them and sort of let go just a little. So, and I think we've already talked about that in that group. One way also with AI, which is very interesting, is us putting our information into AI. Making sure that our feedback has the right tone and delivery, that they can understand it, and then also getting the students to put our feedback in AI so they can get a summary of it so they can better understand it. So yeah, that's group one, right? Thank you, Dr. Phillips. I want to talk some more. This is so interesting. Okay. All right. Group two. Let's go. Group two. The speaker for group two.
This was the shy group, apparently.
Mhm.
You were in there. Who was talking in there?
Let me see. I don't know if I'm gonna
Dr.
pronounce.
Carter, you were in there, and Dr. Davis, right? You were in group 2. Dr. Davis isn't shy. She'll help us out.
But I came in late, so so I know we, talked about some of the challenges in terms of, student learning outcomes. Um, students lacking the background. And so, having to like put together like study guides or worksheet activities, for students to decipher and organize the material in a way, that they can better understand it. And I know in my course, I use AI to, generate like exit tickets or to um, respond to an email about a student who may not um, uh, grasp material. And so I can, organize my my thoughts and put it in a way that it would sound more professional and not you need to do this, so that's what I use AI for, in terms of, hey, I understand where you are, coming from. Here are some strategies and tips that you could, do in order to be successful, and then, they're in that bullet form type that I use that for.
Nice. Well, already you're
Yeah.
sparking something. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. My name is Femin. I'm an adjunct at a College of Business. Part of what we discuss in group 2, including particularly when students are looking at their grade rather than study hard, rather than understanding the content of what we are passing to them, and believing that perhaps maybe they believe they love themselves more than we, the professor, and of which the question I do pass across to them is this, that, hey, listen, if they ask a farmer to bring his a product, a cash crop farmer will bring a cacao, orange, and so on and so forth. If they ask a livestock farmer to give a product of what he does, he will give us chicken and some other things. But if they ask me as a professor to bring the products of what I do, our students who happen to be our ambassador will be my product, my pride product. So in that wise, while you are thinking your product should be at the best, you are giving them instruction of what to do. But because sometimes they believe because they have a direct access to authority, and when you give them assignment to do, they rather leave the assignment until last minute. And they're getting there by giving us the story why their great-grandfather had died instead of submitting the assignment. So diligently, for anybody who will actually do the right thing in the class, might not really have good feedback as a professor, right? So we look at it from different perspectives, why they are thinking of their scholarships, right? Why we are thinking of when they were well taught. We are actually handing over our children to them because it is not we that will teach our children in future. It is these same students that we are mentoring today that becomes the masters of our children. Therefore, if we want to see better tomorrow, even in our own biological children, it means those under our custody right now as a student must be well thought out. And we look at it from the other perspective too, because of the peculiarity of different courses. Those in the areas of languages, say English languages, they are quite different. Their perspective is quite different from those of us in the physical sciences. I teach statistics, data science, and its relation. And when we look at our graduate students, knowing fully well that they have a reason for coming around. So if they really have the hands-on, there are courses whereby it's not about you cramming it that makes you to understand it, but hands-on. So when they are useful in their respective places of their work, they do well over there. Maybe over time, they could come back to the university that made them. The same way you and I are proud of the university that made us, that gave us these certificates, that gave us this opportunity. They too, in the nearest future, once it's well with them, it's well with their children, well with their family. It's so easy for them to come back and say, hey, JSU, 20 years ago, you gave me good certificate. Therefore, in my name, in the name of my family. So that could return to them. That is when we have done the right thing today. That could be the benefit of a GSU, say in the next 20 years, say in the next 10 years, say when we are there or when we are no longer there. So those are the part of the things that we discuss in our in a room too. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to say one or two things.
Thank you. Very inspiring because what you really talked about is education and its long-term effect. And so thinking about when students take our courses, when they graduate, what is their possibility of giving back to the institution? Do they see the value of the instruction that they have received? And so one of the things overall, and we'll wrap this up, overall, we have to realize that just like there's a white coat syndrome, you know, when we're very small, if you have kids, when you see the doctor with the white coat on, the child just goes crazy. It's like, no, take me back home. It is similar when we interact with our students, that they see us as a professor. They see us as this person who has all the knowledge in the world. And so sometimes when we give them feedback, it could, in the perception making, be that they're hearing, not that we're saying, they're hearing that I'm not good enough. They could be hearing that I'm just not cut out for this education thing, or why can't I get it right? Why is it that I have all these sentences on how to improve? And so that is the perception or the conflict in communication working at the same time. So one of the things that we can do for communication, conflict, and perception is give a disclaimer when we pass out assignments or when we grade assignments. My feedback to you is to understand that I'm trying to make you better. And in me making you better, I'm going to acknowledge your strong points. And so make sure we do that in our feedback. Tell the students what they did right. That's very important to do. And then also give them opportunities to think about some ways in which they need to increase. And you will see oftentimes what we deal with, and why we have a lot of conflict, is that we are not building relationships with students. There should be a time when you get to your senior students, they've taken your class a lot, that they know that when Dr. Henderson gives them feedback, this is not attacking my intellect. Like, she's actually making me a better professional. And so we'll have to create relationships with students that say, hey, come by my office, let's talk about this new theory. You do this really well, you're a good writer. Create opportunities to let them know how good they are, so we can sort of decrease this perception that in academia is all about what they do wrong. Now, this could not be our intent. You know, we don't have that much time. We got about 100 students, and we're, you know, you can't do that. But that's one of the burdens sometimes that we carry as being a professor, that we have to realize that we're actually educating students who have their own perceptions and their own previous experience. And we can do a much better job in communication if we sort of understand that there's a perception driving our interaction. So how do I decrease it? A common one is that students think they're not good enough. So if you can encourage them more and build their confidence more, that relationship, when we give feedback, could be better received. And in the long run, they will be able to receive critical or let's say constructive criticism better in their careers, because they know people are not saying you're not enough, right? We've done our job as instructors to kind of weed that out of them, because we teach a very interesting demographic of students. And so imagine if you are in a certain population where you never had an instructor outside of your race, but you've dealt with racism. When someone grades your English or grades your speaking or grades your assignments, there's a lot of things that are going on in between there, right? And we're not even doing that, right? We're just doing our jobs. But now we have the knowledge to know, hey, something else may be going on here. These students may need confidence boosters. And so taking some time out of our jobs to build relationship to comfort them and to increase their confidence. So I hope that this session was fun and engaging. That's all that I have, and I'm gonna yield the floor back to Dr. Pozzetta.
Thank you so much. I think this is such a challenge. I've been doing this for 30 years. So been at it a long time, and I've definitely reached the point where I say things like students are different than they used to be, but they're not really. I think what happens to us as faculty is we get so entrenched in our way of conversing and our way of thinking that we forget what you just said, that they all have their own perspectives, and that giving feedback is about perspective taking, not just trying to force them into your perspective, which is one of the things that I constantly struggle with. I am the prototypical old English teacher who's like, that is incorrect. You must do this correctly. So thank you for this session and for helping us really think about that perspective taking and how we can use some of these tools. I put a couple of links in the chat if you for Packback, which you can get JSU Online to help you integrate into your course shells if you're interested. And then there are tons of tools out there you can try for free. Two of them that I recommended in the chat that you may want to look at. Sometimes I will write feedback and then I'll drop it in ChatGPT and say, make this a little nicer, make this a little more uplifting feedback, anything I can do. So hopefully we will be able to continue these sessions the rest of the spring and into the fall. I will be sending out a survey just to get your feedback on what you would like to see, what you need help with. So as we start planning for next fall, we can get some great feedback from those of you who are participating. So it was great to see you all again. Femi, it was great to see you. I haven't seen you in about a year since our project ended. So and
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. I never knew it's open for adjuncts too. Thank you so much.
yeah, absolutely. So great to have you all here. Share your feedback. You don't even have to wait for the survey. If you have some great ideas, you can always send me an email. Thank you, Dr. Henderson, as always, for your enthusiasm and your insight. We will see you all next week. Jackson State College of Liberal Arts, College of Education, College of Business, and the AI Collaborative will be having an all-day event about AI. So please sign up so you can take advantage of some of that. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.